diet is like your first line of defense, without a doubt. I mean, that is something that we all do 3 times a day, and just being really knowledgeable about how really simple, local, seasonal, nutrient-dense foods that are pretty readily available to most people if you scratch the surface and find things, and don't have to cost you an arm and a leg. If you empower yourself with that knowledge, then you can start them so little. So I want to start these kids really as young as I can, so they have a foundation of knowledge around it, and then they know what it feels like to feel good.
Hilary Boynton is one of my dearest friends. We regularly get on Instagram with our Being Human with Hilda and Hilary segments, and I just think she's fascinating. But not just that, she is brilliant. She wrote the Heal Your Gut Cookbook, and in our conversation in California, this was filmed a couple years ago, we talk about the importance of diet and all the factors that can help you live your healthiest and best life. So check it out.
Hilary, it's so good to be with you. You guys, this is my friend Hilary Boynton. She is the author of the Heal Your Gut Cookbook, and she is known as the Lunch Lady. So I wanted to talk to her first about healing our guts, and then segue into what it means about helping kids have the most nutritious lunch ever, and how she's disrupting the
disrupting the trend of chronic illness in this next generation of kiddos.
And that just trills off her tongue because she's so committed and she's told so many people about this mission. But let's start with healing your gut. Why is gut health so important, Hilary?
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like, we're learning more and more every day that your health really lies in your gut. So there's the gut-brain connection. So everything that you're eating, I mean, the gut really is what feeds everything. So the healthier your gut, we all have good and bad microbes in our gut, but you want the good to outweigh the bad so that you have a healthy balance in there so that your immune system's strong. And I can explain what a leaky gut is.
Because, I want you to, but first I want to say, were you born knowing all this stuff?
Hell no! No, oh my gosh, I made so many errors, and through all of my errors and mistakes and just a lot of painful experiences, I've come across this wisdom that's really changed my life, and that's where the passion came to share this with as many people as I can to prevent those painful experiences. And it's like I went through it so that you don't have to, kind of thing.
Absolutely, because I remember you telling me before that you had like health issues and gut issues and fertility issues, right? And so you started exploring, what options do I have, right?
Yeah, well, I fell for the fat-free thing for like 10 years and then couldn't have babies. I'm trying to shorten my story because this is kind of a long one. But then I couldn't have babies, which was super painful, and I was only 26, so it's like what was going on in my body that I couldn't hold a pregnancy. And then after 3 years, I ended up having triplets through in vitro, and then so I believe like stress contributed to that. The longer it went without me having a baby, the harder it got because all my friends were having babies, and I was just like, am I ever gonna have a baby? And so stress played a huge role in my nervous system, everything, and my health. And then as soon as I had the triplets, it was like wham, wham, I had 2 more, so I had 5 under 4.
Wow.
And then we had health issues with some of our kids. We had eczema with our 4th child, severe eczema head to toe. We've dealt with epilepsy. We're still dealing with epilepsy with one of the triplets. We had 3 boys with speech delays. The one with eczema they thought was dyspraxic. So there was definitely some gut issues going on with the speech delays and all that. Like, I just know it. And so we ventured into, I was searching as a mama, like anything to help him. And every doctor was like, he needs asthma. He's going to have asthma and allergies and eczema, and he just needs steroids and all the typical things. And then I met, it was actually while trying to change school lunches. I dove into that because I had come across Jamie Oliver and Alice Waters when everybody was babies, so that my kids weren't even in school yet. But I was like, this is so crazy and so bad that we need to start changing them. So I reached out to Kristen Canty, who she's the one who wrote and produced Farmageddon, she's got Woods Hill Table in Concord, Mass. Total farm to table restaurant, amazing. So you should go visit it. And now she has 2 more restaurants.
I want to.
Yeah, she has 2 more.
I know, a Mexican restaurant.
And then one in Boston on the pier is coming, so amazing. But she kept saying Weston Price this and Weston Price that. And I was like, what is Weston Price? And what is she talking about? And then she said, well, you've got to get your child on raw milk, because she had healed her son of allergies with raw milk. And I was like, what is raw milk? I had never even heard of it. But I would try anything. So, they're driving to this little underground co-op and picking up my milk for me, her and her family. And I put him on raw milk and cod liver oil, and he was healed within months. So that was like my aha moment that I just have to tell over and over again, because hopefully it will resonate with some people, because I know eczema is pretty much... A lot of children struggle with eczema. Now I'm hearing more adults are struggling with eczema.
Yeah.
So someone just said to me the other day, like, I'm scratching all the time. And I was like, oh, God, it's, So I started to shout it from the rooftops and just let everybody know. And then I was always searching for answers for our daughter with epilepsy. And that's how I ended up with stumbling upon the GAPS diet, really.
Right. Which is the gut and psychology syndrome diet that Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride came across and kind of consolidated the information into a book. But then, I'll take up the story from here just real quick, that then Hilary was like, this is amazing. And so she started coming up with recipes. Is this true? Or am I making this up? You started coming up with recipes to help people eat this way. True or no true?
After I healed Wyatt of the eczema, I went back to IIN and got a degree in holistic... What do you get? Holistic...
Integrative nutrition health coach or something.
Yeah, so I was a holistic health coach.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I can felt the confidence to teach people a little bit about nutrition and wellness, and I was teaching cooking classes out of my home, just self-taught. I dove into nourishing traditions big time. I started running the Amish co-op out of my house, so that everybody could have raw dairy and these farm fresh foods. And when we dove into the GAPS diet, I was sort of like, oh my God, there's all this conflicting information and nothing, no pictures of food. And I'm a visual person, so I was looking through Natasha's book. It's super informative, but there's I was like, oh my God, 2 years of going on a diet, and what am I going to be eating? And so I was teaching these cooking classes, and a woman in the class, Mary Brackett, who's my co-author, she was on the diet as well, and she's a photographer. So she was like, we should write a book. And I'm like, we should write a book. I wanted a beautiful book that you could curl up in bed and look at all the recipes and be inspired and be like, I can heal and eat this beautiful food.
That's so amazing. That makes me so happy, because it can seem overwhelming when you just have a book that has all these words and no pictures or how-to. So you really gave some people some practical ways to cook and see what it would look like when they made these things. Because you guys, the gut and psychology syndrome addresses all kinds of issues, from the things that Hilary's been describing to depression, to mental things, to kids on the autistic spectrum. Like Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride says that this kind of diet, when you heal the gut, there is a gut-brain connection, as Hilary said a moment ago. You can have the whole body from head to toe functioning well.
Yeah, so when you have so like I said, everybody has a balance of good and bad bacteria in their gut. But when a baby goes through the birth canal, they swallow a big gulp of bacteria. That's the first inoculation of their gut. So imagine the moms today, what their gut bacteria microbiome looks like compared to their great-grandmothers. It's just different. It's not their fault per se. It's just what's happened with our environment, with the foods we eat, with the amount of vaccines we have, with the amount of antibiotics we have and different medications. It's layer upon layer upon layer. So the more mindfulness we create around it, the more people might make different choices, or just be mindful of it, and knowing that you have this ability to take control of your own health and balance your gut as much as you can before having children, because of that first inoculation, and knowing that that's an amazing opportunity to populate their gut with the best you can. Because once you have a baby, most babies are born with, I think when my book came out, I think it was Mercola, I'm not sure, but it was 287 toxins are in the average baby's cord blood.
I've heard that.
And that was 5 years ago.
That's
so they're
crazy.
Born kind of toxic, and then they get inherit poor gut flora, then they might get a vaccine day one of life, and then they might have an ear infection and get antibiotics. They might not be breastfed. So all these things just add up.
Totally add up.
And so what happens is the bad bacteria start to outweigh the good. And so you have these little villi in your intestinal lining that are like grass. So they get mowed down with all the bad bacteria, and to the point where they're just like this, and the bad bacteria create these little cracks in your gut lining. And so the stuff that's literally, we're like a tube, right? What goes in should go in through the body and out the other end and stay in the tube. But when there's holes in that gut, things that should stay in get out, and your body sees them as foreign and can launch an autoimmune response, so like allergies and eczema, all that stuff, or it can cross the blood-brain barrier and cause things like autism, ADHD, and more neurological issues. So it's really like, so this diet is intended to heal and seal the gut, and once you do that, you really are able to it's a very strict diet, but it's so worth it. And I was just saying on another podcast, it's like a blip in your life. Right. So it really is like an amazing tool. It's not easy, but so the more you can prevent instead of having to go back and heal is like what I'm really passionate about now.
Absolutely, and that's what I wanted to segue to. Like, so all these kids have been born who have different health issues and stuff like that, but you're trying to reverse that trend, as we said earlier. So how are you doing it?
Well, I think the earlier we set them up with proper nutrition, I think diet is like your first line of defense, without a doubt. I mean, that is something that we all do 3 times a day, and just being really knowledgeable about how really simple, local, seasonal, nutrient-dense foods that are pretty readily available to most people if you scratch the surface and find things, and don't have to cost you an arm and a leg. If you empower yourself with that knowledge, then you can start them so little. So I want to start these kids really as young as I can, so they have a foundation of knowledge around it, and then they know what it feels like to feel good.
That's amazing. And so she is the head of the school lunch program at Manzanita School here in Topanga, California. And so she's helping introduce children to nutrient-dense foods. We're talking not just the typical fare of, whatever, the chips and the nuggets and whatever kids eat now, but she's trying to really introduce them to a whole world of food that tastes amazing and is good for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really fortunate to be able to have access to farmers markets and fresh seasonal foods all year round. Wow. But yeah, we're doing things like, out for snacks, or we do a snack and a lunch for about 100 kids. So I might do even just roasted vegetables and ghee for a snack. When I first started out, it was like just introducing them to the freshness of what's available and in season, and the colors and the tastes and the fats and the flavors, and educating them bit by bit. And then, so it was the snack lady for the first bit, and then I morphed into the lunch lady. But now, yeah, we do things, we're able to do like kefir smoothies, and we soak and dehydrate all of our nuts. We don't eliminate anything, but we make everything as digestible and nutrient-dense as possible. So we make our own sourdough bread from locally grown grains that are freshly milled and then 48 hours fermented. So it's just beautiful. We have beautiful raw dairy from organic pastures, and but the educational piece, I feel like what's so important is tending to these children and the staff day after day after day, because you're like planting seeds every day. And that's, I feel like, the drop-off method of just like, here's your food, and
good luck,
have at it, like they don't take to it necessarily, or that was gross, or that doesn't look good, and I don't want that. So it's that, hey, let's try this, or let's do a shot of beet kvass, or try these fermented carrots, and making it cool and making it fun. And
that's so cool.
So,
That's amazing. And so the cool thing is, she's not just doing this at one school, you guys. She's starting this whole lunch leader academy and some intensive trainings throughout the year, so that people can be equipped to do it at their own schools and their own communities. And I think that's fabulous, Hilary.
I mean, what we're finding, so I had this vision of training a new wave of lunch leaders to sweep across the nation and disrupt the trend of chronic illness in this next generation of kids. It's my little elevator line, right?
Yeah,
I can say it over and over, and then you get it. But what we're finding is that a lunch leader doesn't have, you don't have to want to be the lunch lady in your kid's school. Like, I get that not everybody, that's really intimidating, and not everybody wants that. But if you're a restaurant owner, or you're a chef at the airport or at Google, or there's so many different people that have reached out who want to learn these ways of cooking, and they're so innovative in what they're doing. We have a woman who's coming from, there's a whole farm to YMCA program in Maine that's amazing. So that chef is coming out to be trained so that these nutrient-dense methods and traditional methods of cooking can infuse into their program. There's people starting a little preschool in San Diego. There's a woman who has a brain injury who wants wants to write a book on brain injury and diet. I mean, so there's all different ways that you can become a lunch leader and really just being a food activist in general. And so you get the foundational knowledge and you can tap into whatever market you want, right? And even if you just gain the confidence in your home kitchen, and then you're able to like either knock on the school door and say, hey, like, I know things can be better and I'm here to help, but like, let's figure it out. So,
and take Hilary as an example. Maybe you can start as a snack person and then later
work your way in.
Yeah, that's right. Work your way in. And I love your idea too of starting at home, because once you get the feeling of how good you can feel at 100% from this food, from changing your diet, then you want to share it wherever you can, and hopefully in your community and in your kids' schools as well.
Yeah. I mean, we were saying the other day that really like we're pushing the stone downhill. So the way that we're teaching these kids to eat is really the way we're meant to eat. So you feel good and it actually becomes easier. And you're just using real food and whole ingredients. But the way that most people are eating is pushing the stone uphill, like you're just like eating all the wrong foods that are hard to digest and you're sick and you don't know what to do. And it's like eventually the stone's gonna come back on you and you'll crumble. So it's like, it really made sense to me that really it's not difficult. And nothing that I can't stress enough that nothing that we're doing is very complicated at all. It's just time and systems. So you do have to invest time, but it's way more enjoyable than spending your time chasing health and into the medical system. Once you enter the medical system, it's really hard to backpedal and get out, or to have to heal your gut, or have to, whatever. I mean, when you get a diagnosis like cancer or autism, I mean, it's just life-changing. Life-changing. So, and now it's just diabetes is happening younger. I think by 2030, 1 in 2 children will have a chronic disease, which is so devastating. So we literally can't afford it in this country. Like, we're going to be spending all of our money supporting sick people.
Wow.
So, and then the other thing that I can say is that usually I think that like parents, it's a trickle-down effect. You educate the parents and then they'll educate their kids. But I think through educating the children, it's started to have a trickle-up effect where the kids are really like, wow, this is amazing. And the staff is like, this is amazing. Then the parents get curious. So then we invite the parents in for parents at lunch once a month. And so then they're feeling well nourished.
Nice.
And then this way of eating infuses into the home. And that's ultimately what makes me so proud when I see this way of life becoming a way of life, not only at school, but at home as well.
Oh, that's so powerful. I love all these images you've said about the stone going downhill and how it's easy and how it's actually trickling up. It's all the opposite of what you normally think, but it's powerful and it's important.
It's powerful. I mean, I think if you're a parent, the best thing you can do is to educate yourself about nutrition and get really real about it. There's so many conflicting and confusing people advising. I mean, the advice out there is so it's understandable that people are really confused. So really tune into the simplicity of our ancestors and how they ate. So Hilda's podcast and the Weston A. Price Foundation, it is really powerful. So I think going with tradition and what's been done for thousands of years is really like hard to deny that was working.
Right, absolutely.
People were thriving, free of disease. And somebody said on a podcast I was listening to today, you go back to Woodstock and you don't see one obese person. Not one.
Such a good point.
So when was that? 69?
60s. It was in the 60s.
But now, every day,
oh, yeah,
see so many obese people.
And they're struggling.
So,
they're not happy. They're not healthy. No weight shaming, but just that people almost seem burdened by their bodies. So we're trying to look for a new...
Well, and it's not necessarily their fault because it is so confusing. And so I think to dive into it and to really get real with like that this is so important and that you can feel good and it doesn't have to be a lifelong battle. It's really so, I mean, we just pulled off a dinner. We just had dinner. We're like, let's
amazing.
Do the YouTube thing now. So that's why we're like kind of beachy looking and whatnot. But like dinner and like my new thing with dinner is that I have people over, and then when they're like, can I bring something? I'm like, yes, great, bring something, because it doesn't have to be totally overwhelming. What really matters in today's day and age is just getting together.
Right,
like so many people
absolutely.
don't make time to cook or whatever, but if it's overwhelming for you, then just ask everybody to bring something.
Right. And keep in mind what Hilary always says, which is simplicity is gourmet.
Yes.
And it is simple. It doesn't have to be complicated to look back to the past for good health today. This is one of my little taglines, because I'm just
Look
like,
back to the past for good health today.
Right?
Yeah. And really understanding that some of the powerhouses of nutrition are things that can make us really uncomfortable, like organ meats and using the whole animal. We were just talking with an 18 and a 20-year-old, and it was super inspiring because they're really actually pretty conscious, which is like, great, this is so cool. They have so much wisdom already. But
That's true.
what was I saying about the animals? Oh, to have that
Nose to tail.
consciousness
Yeah.
of using the whole animal and honoring the animal and knowing where it comes from. That, we had conversations about regenerative agriculture and why it's important to have ruminants on the land, and our soil health is everything. And so creating those conversations, especially with these young 20-somethings or teenagers, it's like they're open to it, right? And they're trying to find their way. So making it kind of a really beautiful, open discussion and listening, right? It was really cool. It was a cool exchange of
great.
information.
It was
And he was like
excellent.
writing down resources. And so, conversation is big.
Yeah, those kind of conversations can change the world. So thank you for our conversation today.
Thanks for watching, you guys. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this video. Subscribe so you don't miss a thing, and click on the notification bell so you can be alerted the next time I upload a video. We'll talk soon. Hasta pronto.